Alright, and done. Oh, that looks bad. But the interior isn't that bad, huh? Oh, this is it? Really? Hello and welcome, you can call me Vale, and I love Minecraft. I could play it 10 hours a day until it comes to building. I'm terrible. Well, maybe I'm over-exaggerating a little, but I'm not that good. I'm not living in a dirt hut, but it doesn't mean I'm making the world's greatest Minecraft design. So I'll come up with an idea, try to build it, and then it never turns out quite right. A lot of the time, I don't know what else to add, or even where to start building. So then I just end up getting burnt out. Considering how much building is a part of Minecraft, I decide that needs to change now. So generally, I don't know that much, but there is a lot you can do. So we'll get into that later. Typically, in a Minecraft build, I'll add as much detail as I can think of, especially to exterior. And this can go multiple ways. I either feel like it's lacking, it needs more, it's too much, or the details just look bad. And then when it comes to interior, I'm usually lacking in that department as well. I'll try, but usually on the inside it's bare and empty. And then, so this is just building and structures, but there's also so much more you can do. So if you were building a city, you'd have streets, cars, flowers, benches, stuff to fill out the outside and surrounding areas of builds to make it feel more realistic. Almost like when you're walking through it, you feel like you're in the city. Terraforming is also a big part, so making rivers, cliffs, mountains, anything like that can really tie a build together. Choosing what blocks and what to not use goes with what you're building all really boils down to architecture. Understanding architecture is probably the most fundamental part of building. So you don't want to put a futuristic interior inside of a medieval castle with flying cars outside and a paved road. You want something that matches. So maybe a cobblestone/dirt path with a medieval kitchen, so it matches your architecture. And so understanding what type of architecture you are building is also very important. You can do something that isn't realistic like cyberpunk, or even take a more realistic approach like modern. Choosing what to build is up to you, and different types of architecture is easier than others. As a new builder, I'm not going to choose something as complex as Gothic. Choosing something simple is crucial for this. Now, you can get really complex, so you can actually mix and match architecture's types too. And my immediate thought is Smallish Beans Hermitcraft Season 10 builds, which is a mixture of cyberpunk and Asian. Now, this is extremely difficult as a new builder, so mixing different types is completely out of the question. You can also break down architecture as well. So there are multiple areas we can look at. Now, this is a more realistic part of architecture, so we can get a real life look at this. Let's take something as complex as Gothic. The Gothic era is something that really happened. It is not something that is in a video game. Not that it's not from a video game, but wasn't created from a video game. It's not like the Dwarven dungeons of Skyrim. Man, did I hate those. This is real. So if we break down this era, there's early Gothic, high Gothic, flamboyant Gothic, and there's more than that. But being able to look at all of these different subtypes, we can make it a little bit easier. All of these types go hand in hand. They all look similar in some type of way with varying differences. You can easily just mesh all these together and build or symbolize it and just focus on one. By doing this, you can look at what makes this type of architecture like this and different from others, and you can also tell what type of blocks you should use, what details you can add, and so on. So now you can obviously make this your own and add your own flair, but understanding how a type of architecture works makes it so much easier to build. It's almost like a cheat sheet. You can take a description, pictures of early Gothic, which has pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, and add this to your build. You can also mix this with High Gothic, which typically has larger windows. And to get even more complex, you can add a totally different type of architecture, entirely mixing it up with something like medieval. Making a big castle, mixing these two types can make something beautiful. You get the point though. Each type of subtype or architecture, whether it's mixing or matching or keeping it simple, have certain things that make it what it is. So after going over architecture, I noticed while watching proficient builders, they do something I never thought of. Now, obviously, decorations such as interiors, roofs, and even whole buildings can be very hard to memorize how to build it all. But decorations like chandeliers, chairs, storages, It can all be saved as assets using certain mods. These builders even take it as far as saving roofs, cars, or whole buildings, even walls of those said buildings. And this can be even different types of trees that you can take, copy, and paste that you've already created and to fill out the outside. To keep this in your arsenal and building down the road can save tons of time. Adding a chandelier you built a year ago because it fits the build you're making right now can help a lot. You can also do this by taking some time before a build to create some various decorations or really anything and saving them, or even while you're making the build, you can save those assets. Messing around with different ways to do decorations instead of just building a house, then add it later, can really help you. You can also take a decoration, such as a chair, and add some more stuff to it, or take some stuff away. And then, so that everything doesn't really blend together. You can take the roof of a previous build, save it, and add a whole new building under it. This does go back to architecture though, in a way of choosing the assets that fit your build. Being able to have this tool under my belt will help me down in the line of buildings down the road. This is also coming from someone who, again, doesn't know how to build, so being able to know that I can take different assets and keep them that I've built and worked on and messed around with, and just pasting it to a build that I've made 2 years in the future really can help. And it might feel like you're cheating, but you built it. You're the one that built it. You created it. So why not use it? So terraforming is also another big important part of building. You can have a beautiful building, but if it isn't terraformed on the outside, it can really take away from it. This can be mountains, hills, rivers, the blocks that are you even using to terraform with. Choosing a mixture of moss, grass, and puzzle can really tie a building together that is in a taiga biome. Then adding custom trees, such as custom spruce trees, and other stuff like a well outside, can create something amazing. There are different tools you can use to make this way easier. Having a mod that creates buildings, rivers, or even gigantic organics like a massive dragon that you can use to shape said dragon can save countless hours. But also just being good at using these tools can take a while to be good at. Being able to create something realistic can take some time. Creating a massive mountain range that looks good and matches the build and is detailed enough to take some time just using these tools. All these different parts of building take a lot of time and even research to be good. That's another thing, research. Obviously, researching the type of architecture to build out of, or just to get inspiration from a mountain range to build. A lot of times, I'll just come up with an idea in my head, or I look on Pinterest for something, not realizing I could get inspiration from many different ways. I always thought of kind of getting inspiration from stuff like this, and looking at pictures is kind of lame and boring. But I would sit here and wonder what to build. The most master builders do this all the time, getting inspiration. I always thought they would just create these buildings in their head and just start building. Not to say that this doesn't happen, but usually it's only after someone truly masters how to build and understand why something works when building. I also never really realized how much inspiration can truly help. This can come from many different forms, from pictures, just seeing buildings in real life, nature, movies, books, and even video games. Anything can give you inspiration for a Minecraft build. It's how you use it and make it your own is the hard part. There's also a lot more that can go into builds, such as texturing, which would be like mixing blocks. So if you were to take stone bricks and cracked stone bricks, and your building is primarily made out of stone bricks, and you add some texture with the cracked stone bricks, then it can really make a world of a difference. It makes it look not so boring. The wall is not one singular block. And then adding details that really capture the eye. This can be something as simple as trapdoors or buttons on the side of a wall. The best builders can take the most random blocks you wouldn't even think of and use them as details. Mastering all of this will definitely take some time, so let's start with something easy. Since I'm trying to learn how to build, I'm just going to get my feet wet first. I'm going to follow a tutorial. This will help me understand building a bit better. So I'm going to follow Gemini Tay's 6-year-old tutorial. Yes, this may be a little bit dated with all the new stuff Minecraft is constantly adding, but honestly, Gemini Tay is one of my favorite Minecraft YouTubers, so it doesn't really matter. So this tutorial has no interior, but to me that will be perfect, and you'll see why soon. Alright, so I finally finished the tutorial. It took me probably about an hour. I kept messing up and so many different ways, but it's okay. So I ended up changing some of the stuff up, changing the roof, adding my own blocks, texturing some of these as well, and trying to add my own flair as much as possible, even though this was almost a carbon copy of the building. Now, when it came to the interior, I decided to differentiate room by room and pick what was what by making a living room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. Doing this really simplified it and made me focus on what decor would go in what room. By doing this, I added my own little story, a twist to it. So this person loves to read. There's books in the kitchen, in the living room, and in their bedroom right next to their bed because they love to read everywhere in their house. I even added some of these little leaves in the living room, almost like they were outside exploring, finally came home and couldn't wait to read their next book that they didn't bother to dust off their shoes. I also downloaded Axiom after building this and decided to copy some of the assets from the build. So there's the foundation, the roof, and this little decoration I made in the bedroom. This wasn't 100% fully copied correctly. There was a lot of blocks missing, or there was a lot of blocks added, and it didn't come out quite right. But nevertheless, I just can shape it up when building, or just shape it up now and then fully copy it by itself without having these extra blocks in the way or having to maneuver around the entire building. Doing this though can help me create 2 new houses out of the roof and using the foundation, and that's what I'm gonna do next. So after a while of messing around with this, I accidentally turned the whole world into andesite on accident, but I fixed it. I ended up moving this over, fixing up the placement of these blocks and trying to make it like the original. I was originally just going to change the blocks entirely to like tough bricks. Then I'd actually decided that I was just going to stick with the original foundation and then just add something new on top of it. So pretty much all I kind of did differently was take away the second part of the house. So it was not an L shape anymore. It was just kind of one rectangular house. But I decided to also add a story to this, in that this house is actually going to be a blacksmith slash a house. So the bottom part is going to be the blacksmith shop, and then the top part is actually going to be the house. And I did this a little differently. I did the interior before the exterior, just to kind of switch things up. But I also didn't add anything on the outside yet because I want to add like a forge and a grindstone and all that stuff, but I kind of want it to be on the outside. So on the outside, you have like the forge, the grindstone, everything like that to make the weapons and armors and tools. And then on the inside, you can actually go in and buy that stuff. Which kind of reminds me of the blacksmith in Skyrim in Whiterun, which is kind of where I got this idea from. But I'm actually going to go a little further with this story of this little village and going to actually add a second blacksmith. But this blacksmith is going to be a lot more industrialized. It's going to have like 10 forges, a bunch of workers, and the whole story of this little village that's going to be created is that there is this little town where everyone's living, and this corporation is trying to take over and industrialize it. And then off in the distance, there's going to be like this industrialized city kind of creeping over and is trying to take over this village and expand their company for profit. Now, I also kind of took this from Stardew Valley with Pierre and Joja storyline, but this is another thing where you can take something and make it your own. You take the basic of the story and twist it and put your own flair onto it. So I've noticed while I've been building, the thing I've kind of struggled a lot with is interior. Way more than I think I've struggled with exterior at all. I think like even with exterior, even if it doesn't look good, I can always find something to add that might look better if I did nothing at all. Interior always feels like something is lacking. It feels bare in a way, even if there is stuff, because I feel like I can only add so much sometimes. And it just feels like it's almost just the same thing, and I just keep repeating myself. So, given this, I decided to do almost a little exercise, if that makes sense. I took some blocks that kind of matched the palette of what I was going for with this little village and try to come up with some interior ideas. And I still kind of struggled. It was nearly the same thing over and over again that I was building, either adding one small difference. And I tried to do something with a hopper. So basically, I picked a block and had to find out some way to make this a decoration, which I think in hindsight was a good idea. But I think I executed this whole thing really badly. I think next time when I do this, I'm going to do something very specific, like either pick a block or I build decorations for like a storage system, like a little chest, a wardrobe, and then I dedicate a time doing some different types of lighting, maybe a chandelier, and then maybe at some point do some furniture, different type of bedding, and trying to, instead of like doing random things and kind of just throwing blocks all over the place, being very specific in what I do and what I use. So I'm not sure if any of these clips really captured it, but I struggled very hard with axiom, just trying to copy different parts of that first house, or even a little bit of the interiors that I did end up copying as well. I just could never get it quite right, and I did take a second to watch a small little video, which did really help me, but sometimes I've just been struggling with it. And I think it's one of those things that's going to take some time, like building, to really understand. But I fixed this little house, or not the house, I fixed the roof up on this, kind of cleared it out so that when I'm building it, especially even on the inside, I don't have to worry about it. But as I was building this house, it didn't feel like it was gonna be a house. Like, I could just feel it was gonna be another kind of shop or slash store. So I ended up turning it into a library, which I guess isn't really either, because you don't really buy anything at libraries. But anyways, so I turned into a library, and I ended up like really liking this house or building. It ended up actually being one of my favorites, just because I just loved the way that it didn't feel like I was necessarily doing the same thing over and over again with the interior. It felt different in this one. And it felt like I really understood what like I was doing with the interior. And it felt good. Yeah, I think maybe the mud bricks that I put in here kinda clashed with all the spruce, and it felt really like brown and muddy. But a part of me kind of likes it. And this also isn't fully done. I'm gonna add a little outside area. That's why one of the walls looks fairly bare, and which is one of my problems that you'll see in the next build, is that when it comes to a wall without a window, I didn't know what quite to do. We'll get into more of that during this next build, but I'm going to focus on this one for a little bit. I kept struggling on trying to find something to work for the walls that wasn't oak or the birch wood. And I really tried to make mangrove work throughout all of these builds, but it just never worked. I don't know what it was about this block specifically, but I love mangrove, and I just could not, it just didn't feel right when I was building. Like, I think even in this next build and in the last build, I tried to use mangrove, but I ended up just not using it because it just never felt like it fit. And I went to the other builds to see if to get inspiration on the walls, so I ended up just using spruce. I really wanted to use something different, so that's why I use these mud bricks or the mud blocks. And I really like them too. Like, I love a lot of these blocks, but it just kind of felt like at the same time I was just copying the same thing from the last house, especially with the roofs. Like, the roofs are pretty much all the same, if not the same, throughout this build. And I really wanted to do something different with these blocks, but at the same time, I just didn't know what to do. So there was a lot of times where I was sitting here looking through all of the blocks, like, meticulously. I think I'm using that word right, I don't know. And, like, going section by section, even looking at where the swords are, just to see if there was anything different. And it kind of caused me a slight burnt out because I just felt like I was repeating myself so much that I just didn't want to build. And, like, anytime I was think, oh, like, this block would work, like the mangrove, and it just wouldn't quite fit. And it felt like even oak planks didn't even look good on, like, the blacksmith build. And it was definitely a struggle trying to figure out what blocks to use, because I feel like the blacksmith, I really did not like it. Like, I didn't, it's not even that, like, I don't like it, I just didn't like the oak planks that I used for the walls, but I didn't want to use the birch wood because I feel like it was just another repeat. And the roofs also, I said this before, I feel like a complete repeat, and I struggled wanting to build the same roof over and over and over again, even if it was varied in a way, like an L shape, or it was just a straight long roof. It felt the same, and it was the same blocks again, and I just didn't know what to do instead because I didn't want all of them to have the same roof and then one of them to look completely different. I want it to all be cohesive, like it's the same build, but different in a way, and that's what I struggled with. And I think next time I'm gonna work a lot on varying the builds, like the roofs, the color palette of, like, the blocks. And I think that's what made me take forever to find blocks to use, because I was just using the same blocks and it didn't feel right using something that just was completely different from every other build. I also did this thing with the roof in here where I put slabs and kind of lined the top of the roof, and I ended up really liking it. Like, it was something that I was actually kind of proud of, that I've never, like, I haven't watched a lot of, like, house building tutorials, like, of just houses. Anytime I see a lot of, like, creative builds, they're just completely different from what I've usually watched. And, you know, I really, like, the inside of the roof, the upper inside was really good, and I ended up taking that for my next build and using it. Alright, so for this next build, it was gonna be a little house, like a bit of a smaller one. It was just gonna have, like, maybe one room, and it was just gonna be like a bedroom with some storage. And this is where I wanted to do a different block for the roofs, and I ended up not liking it at all. Maybe, like, I probably should have taken the time to find other blocks, but then I was like, well, it doesn't match the other buildings. So if the other buildings have the same type of roof, it's just not gonna look right next to them. And then I added, like, a little bit of a variation to it. And the roof, it almost felt like it was just too grand of a roof for such a small little house, and it felt like it needed a building that really captured it in a way. And that's where I got the idea to do like a town hall. So this is gonna have like a big dining room, a kitchen. I ended up adding a bar to it to fill it out. And I was gonna do 2 floors and like everything. Like it's gonna be a massive build to really challenge myself with this. So I think I'm pretty sure I went back to back with these builds because I would do a house or a building and then I would let it sit for a few hours. Maybe the next day I'd come back and build another house. And I think from going from the library to this one, I ended up doing it within like the same hour just to not like I would do it so I wouldn't get burnt out so easily. Because a lot of times I'm just even like now I'm just struggling to know what to do next, especially for interior, like I said before. So I didn't want that to really happen. So going into this build, I marked out the rooms obviously, but I did them all into sections because a build this big can look a little daunting. So breaking it up into sections or rooms and then doing each section little by little and not even looking at the other rooms, just focusing on one room at a time and not worrying about the other ones, really helped and like simplify it and not make it look as crazy. So like I would do the interior and then I would do the exterior for like the windows or whatever it was, and then move on to the next room and then do the interior for that and then do the exterior for it and not do interior all at once and then exterior all at once and try and find a way to fix it or make it fit together and like have all these ideas kind of bouncing around and getting too overwhelmed. So this is the one time where I felt like mangrove really worked with this, and I don't know if it was just the scale of this house or the fact that it was furniture that I used mangrove, because I'm pretty sure I used mangrove in the first house, but it was only on the inside and it was on like some of the interior. So I ended up making it work for this and I think it fit pretty well. I'm not sure if it was just because of how again big this building is or if it was because of the floor or what it was, but it felt like it really worked with this. So I'm just gonna probably just yap over this building part of the last house. So I think I'm gonna start off with things I'm gonna do differently. So I think next time, the next village, which is actually gonna be like the industrial city, which I was talking about earlier with the blacksmith, but I'm gonna make the city first before I make the blacksmith in this village because it just to really understand the like aesthetic I'm going for and the blocks I'm gonna use. But given that, what I think I'm gonna do before is gonna maybe get the layout of a village and probably terraform first and kind of getting how big this like the village or city is gonna be before I really get into making the houses, which it's not that I can't do it after, but I think understanding where everything's gonna be at will help me understand what to make next. So like I could build a bunch of houses and then terraform, but I could also terraform a good chunk and then build the houses. So I think maybe a combination of both as well. But I think me just working in this super flat area kind of made me not know what to build next or what to really do next, because I would start building something and be like, oh, I don't know what this is going to be, or this is just going to be another house, and not knowing what to do. Or not realizing that, oh, maybe instead of a house, I do this instead. So doing that, I think, will probably help. And also varying the roofs and the houses and the color blocks to the color blocks. Like the blocks in general. And I think what I should have done is took in the fact that like I took two parts of a house and made two more houses out of, and I really should have taken that and done it a lot more, but I ended up not doing that at all and just copying pretty much the same roof over and over again on every house. So I think next time I'm gonna do that more and also start like changing everything up. So instead of doing the same roof, I might copy the base of one house and do a different roof, or copy the same roof and do different blocks, and changing it up and doing that will not help me get so burnt out of doing the same thing, but also will help me build a lot more like kind of time, not time consume, but save time in building and trying to fill out like a village or something. And I think that will probably help with doing things differently, and also doing an interior a lot differently. I think like I had a good thing going with that little exercise of just building random stuff, but also building the random stuff kind of messed me up a lot because I was just placing random blocks, whether it was a furnace, a slab, a chest, a barrel. I was just placing random stuff and just not making anything I liked. So what I think I'm gonna do differently is like tell myself that I'm gonna build 5 different types of like furnaces, or 5 different types of cabinets, or chandeliers, or lighting, or something, or like beds, or bookshelves, or something like that within the same like aesthetic, and not just placing random things, but then also taking what I did with the hopper and making myself build something out of something I wouldn't necessarily use, like a hopper, and kind of messing around with that and trying to figure out interior a lot more, because I feel like that's where I kind of slightly struggle with a lot, is interior. Also, I feel like one of my big issues was getting burnt out. So I don't know if you can really tell, but in some of these houses, I kind of stopped using like the texturing. I stopped like texturing the like cracked black stone in the roof a lot. Like I think I stopped that after the blacksmith one, or maybe the library one. I don't really know. But after that, I kind of stopped texturing because I got really burnt out, especially after wasting all my time doing that town hall. I stopped because immediately after I did this town hall, I did those 2 little small houses, which I feel like you can tell I just kind of did those super quickly. And taking some time to not get burnt out. And I think the reason was really just because I feel like I spent all the time doing something and just kind of ended up not having anything to show for it. Which is okay. Like, I'm going to build stuff that I'm not going to like, or doesn't quite fit, or like whatever it may be, and just trying to not get so in my head and not get so burnt out from something like that, and taking some time to step back and be like, okay, so why isn't this town hall working? Like, what's the real reason? Why is this roof bad? Is there anything I can do to fix this? And maybe taking a day or two, and then coming back and be like, okay, well, now I'm going to build houses and scratch this idea, or do something else. Maybe make some more interior, do another interior exercise. Maybe just building some different types of roofs, different types of something. Like, that's also one thing I could do, is build different types of roofs, instead of doing the same thing. Same thing with, like, building a bunch of roofs and then saving them as assets, doing stuff like that. And I think, like, taking stuff like the roofs or interior, or doing even different types of windows, is something that I think I need to start taking, and taking like some amount of time before I start building a house, and just start building like some assets that I could save. for later, or some windows I can make, or whatever it could possibly be. And taking the time to do that to really help with building, I feel like, because a lot of times I'll get to a window or the interior or whatever it may be and just not knowing what to do, and then just feeling even more burnt out because I'm like, well, I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to fill this room up with interior. I don't know what to do on this wall that has no window because I don't know what could go there. And I think taking time to mess around with just a blank wall and just adding different types of details and figuring that out, or different ways I can add plants, because I stopped doing that as well. And almost like taking a step back and figuring out why something works and why something doesn't work would probably help so much. And I'm just kind of taking that for granted. Because I'll build something, like I'll do like an interior, like with like the shelves I made, like the little cabinets, and I'll just spam it throughout the whole build. I'll spam shelves throughout the whole build. And it just gets so muddy and just bad. And it's just almost too much detail that doesn't need to be there, especially on the outside. Like, I'll add so much detail and it just doesn't look good afterwards, and I don't realize until after, like, I'm done building, and I'll go back over and go, oh, this doesn't look the greatest. And this isn't, like, I know I'm not the greatest at building, which is why I'm trying to get better, and I really need to take time to understand why something doesn't work, or why this interior isn't working, or it's just some ways that can fix my issues, and not understanding my issues too. Like, I feel like interior again is like my biggest fucking issue. And I think taking some time before I build something to match the aesthetic of like the village I'm creating is something that could really help out, and which is what I'm going to take into my next build and add to it. So enough with my yapping, let's get into trying to figure out the terraforming and axiom and trying to really put this village together. Alright, so first up, I decided to do some pre-saves, or like save some assets of some trees, so that I could like surround the village in a forest, or like put some trees in for decorations. So I did that first before really doing axiom. I had like watched a 2-hour tutorial, and then also tried a little bit of world editing and like an actual like world that wasn't a super flat, just to have something to work with. And it is a lot to learn. Like, it's genuinely like so much, and it's one of those things where you can watch so many tutorials, but you really got to teach yourself and go through everything. But before that, as I said, I was making these trees, and I didn't really follow any type of like real tree. I looked some up, like some spruce trees and some oak trees, but I don't really like think I followed how they actually look. I kind of just did my own, which is fine, but I think in the future I'm definitely gonna try and can't talk. I'm definitely gonna try and recreate some actual trees and work with that a little bit more instead of just kind of coming up with some stuff, because the oak trees and these spruce trees, I made like 4 different types, and I kind of made them the same way, so there wasn't really much of a difference, and it's not like very realistic. But again, this is Minecraft, so you can do whatever you want when it comes to these. Alright, so after I figured out how to get all the trees saved, I end up coming and saving all of these houses and like the blacksmith and stuff. And it was pretty challenging because it was a little bit harder of a shape to save and like get all the blocks in, because all you really have to do for the trees is get like the like wood and then get the leaves like saved in. But for the houses, it was like just a little bit different because you had this bigger shape and it was like a bunch more blocks. So I couldn't really figure out how to do it with the like free select tool. So how to use like the box one, and it just was a little difficult at first, but I ended up getting the hang of it. So I did the terraforming and the like house placements at like the same time. I would do a little bit of terraforming with the various tools in Axiom, and then I would place a few houses and kind of go back and forth. And I didn't add too much. I kind of just surrounded parts of the village in like a little hill, and then ended up putting a bunch of trees down, like surrounding it in a forest. And the problem with Axiom is like painting the trees can like and making a forest can like clutter them all together and feel like really smashed together with the trees just because of the way like the leaves blocks are, because it's like a full block and it's not like how leaves are in real life. So that will probably end up being fixed later on when I actually end up expanding stuff, because like I'm gonna try and do every single build I make connected in in this world like some type of way, and that probably won't be fixed for a while. So then after I did the placements of the trees and the houses, I added bone meal everywhere, and this was a little like tedious because even with putting infinite reach on, I don't think it really changed the way that you had to be right next to the grass block to do bone meal. And even though this was like a kind of a smaller thing, the grass really did change how the way like the village felt and even just looked like it looked so much better even with just grass. And I also added some lamp posts around, and I didn't like copy and paste them. I kind of just freehanded them around and they all kind of looked a little bit different, or some of them looked the exact same. I just kind of copied the same way. And then I also kind of just spammed the same barrel decoration around and around the village, and it probably wasn't the greatest, but I didn't know what else to put, so I ended up just doing that. Alright, so now this village is kind of done. I'm kind of over it. Like, I've done everything I'm probably ever gonna do. I might end up coming back and changing it. Like, it's to the point where the houses, I guess just how I saved them, they don't have any flooring. I really just did not feel like going back and changing it. But there are a few things I liked, like, with the houses in general. I liked the way I did some of the insides of the roofs. Um, Even if the outside roofs felt very similar in a way, I ended up adding some like slabs and stuff on top with like mixing it with like lanterns and adding lighting. And I got that idea from when I built the library. And even when I did the big, was supposed to be a town hall, I ended up using that and ended up really liking it. So I took that idea and added it to some of the, actually I think I only added it to one house. But, like, even though I only used it on one house, like, you can see where the lanterns are hanging, um, I will probably end up using it in the future, and, like, and that's what, like, I like, though, is that even though I didn't use that whole town hall, I ended up liking the way I did something, like the shelves I made, and using it in later builds, and it really, I think, really helped me. And there are a lot of things I would like to do differently, is like to differentiate the houses a lot. The roofs I would have liked to differentiate, doing a lot more interior. And even on the outside, like the outside decorations, I didn't do that much. I put just some spruce stairs, a few wells, and a little bit of farmland, and again, spam the same barrel thing that I made all over the village. And I think next time I'm really going to take my time and make a bunch of decorations that fits the village and fits outside or inside in different places, like if it's a kitchen, and I'll some of them will fix some of them will fit like bedrooms, and do that a lot more on decorations and taking my time with that. instead of just spamming a bunch of blocks and figuring that out. And also throughout this entire build, I experienced a lot of burnout, and I think a lot of it was just me building essentially the same thing because I didn't take different types of architecture to this build. I took pretty much how the first tutorial house I watched and I built, I took pretty much of that and then tried to add it to other builds. And I think taking like architecture type like steampunk and using that as inspiration, even though this has nothing to do with steampunk, but like if I were to build something like steampunk and taking a lot of different types of architecture from movies, shows, games, even real life, which steampunk isn't real, but like if it was real, and taking stuff like that and really trying to understand it. And same thing with like trees and understanding trees. And I think just a lot of it, I need to spend more time really perfecting everything instead of just placing a bunch of stuff and just going with it. And this isn't like me, you know, like this is expect me to be like the greatest builder at the end of this video. Is supposed to be like I've, you know, like what I feel like I improved on, what I could do better next time, and a lot more like expectations in the future. And I think I did improve on a lot. Like I feel like there are some things that I took, even if I never used that town hall, there's stuff that I took from there that really gave me ideas on how to do stuff. And hopefully in the next video of this that I'll be even better than the last time. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I know this video is kind of long. Honestly, I haven't uploaded in like 2 weeks or played my Forever World just because I've been working on this. And with the burnt out I kind of felt throughout rebuilding pretty much the same house over and over again, really like kind of dragged it all out. But anyways, again, thank you for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. Thank you.